want to thank you so much for joining us and welcome you into America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates with Nolan Baker and Chaz Price. Scott Kirshner is not with us today. Here's the phone number, 419-794-3030. Once again, 419-794-3030. Online, arhq.com. My name is Chris Swan. Really do appreciate you being with us here on the show today. We're going to talk about what you should own before a market crashes. If you're planning on taking Social Security at age 65, we're going to talk about how to fill that income gap and find out how you can get more reliable income in retirement. All this and more. But before we dive into any of it, let me check in with the guys. Nolan, Chaz, glad to be with you. How are you today?
Yeah, doing great. Happy Mother's Day weekend to all the moms that are out there. Hopefully you have a great weekend. I know that we've got some fun stuff planned around our house. And last weekend, speaking of mom and dad took the kids out for some bowling over at Southwick Lanes and still showed the kids that mom and dad are a little better at bowling than they are. So we were able to beat them so far. And I don't know, with golf season coming up, I think Carter might have me this year. Let's see what happens there.
Yeah, hopefully the weather holds up and get some good golf rounds in here coming up. Maybe even take mom out for Mother's Day round.
Absolutely.
My mom's the one who got me involved in golfing, so it's fitting.
Definitely make sure you give your mother a call if you've got the chance to do so this weekend. And, maybe not if you have retirement questions. I think I've talked about this before. The first tip my mom really gave me when I got my first job, if there's money on the table as far as a 401k employer match goes, always make sure you get it because it's free money. That stuck with me my entire life. Great advice. Thanks, Mom. Beyond that, I think I would turn to someone else. No offense to her, but actually retirement professionals like the team at America's Retirement Headquarters. So after you call your mom, don't forget this number again, 419-794-3030. Let's go ahead and jump into the show here. The Federal Reserve may, heavy lifting there on the word may, pause interest rate hikes to give them a chance to work against inflation. If that doesn't work, there are concerns that we might be in store for something that's called stagflation, something that we saw in the 70s, a combination of stagnant economic growth, high inflation, and high unemployment. Not a great combination there. So how do we protect our retirement savings if that does happen?
That's a great question. Looking at how to protect your retirement savings if we end up with stagflation. And, we haven't seen that since the 1970s. And I was born in 76, so I was just a young tyke at that time. And don't quite remember those economic conditions that are out there. But, have had 29 years of experience in this field. We've seen kind of the market crash of 2008. Of course, I was in the business when the market went down for 3 years in a row in 2000, 2001, and 2002. And, of course, we had the flash crash when COVID happened. So, we've seen some of these difficult times that happen overall in the portfolio. And, they keep talking about this upcoming recession. So, if you haven't watched any of the news, they're fearful that these major increases could put us into a recession in the near term. And so it's very, very important right now to make sure you know what you own. And then we talk about diversification as one of the strategies to help reduce risk. But I also say you can sometimes be over-diversified, meaning that if more go down than up, it still can be painful. So diversification is important, but knowing what you own is extremely important. Things like defensive stocks, like consumer staples and utilities, those can be companies that can, continue to perform during those stagflation types of environments. It can be kind of a different asset class, but when you own the companies that people need every single day, I'm going to still go to the grocery store regardless of having a recession. I'm still going to, have my kids eat cereal in the morning, clean, use those cleaning products. Those are, good things to consider having if we are in that type of environment. Also, those utilities, I'm going to continue to have my, water and gas bill. Those utility bills are going to continue to come in. What about you? When you're looking at things, Chaz, and we're thinking about, what if it was like the 1970s all over again? We had this, stagnant economy, high inflation. We got back to maybe high unemployment. What are you telling people when you're talking about how to protect my retirement savings?
Yeah, it's a good question, Nolan. And I think what's challenging about stagflation is that it's a difficult process to get your arms around because there's so much going on. There's the high inflation. There's typically high in unemployment. It's kind of like when you're in the doctor's office and you're trying to figure out what's going on. You're sick, and they're throwing everything at it, but it's not working. And I kind of feel like that's the way that the Fed is now. We're continuing to see rising inflation. We've dumped a ton of money into, the economy, and it's kind of like that. It's just not working. And so what we really need to do as investors is kind of take that responsibility on our shoulders, as you're saying, and really work on diversification. Also, if we look back at the 1970s, I think there are some correlations. During the 1970s, there was a lot of factors that led to the stagflation. There was an oil crisis, rising commodity prices, big changes in monetary policy. I think that's when we went off the gold standard and just kind of threw everything awry. And so we kind of have a lot of correlation. In fact, there was a war, the Vietnam War back then. So there are a lot of factors that are putting pressure on the economy and inflation. We had COVID. We've got a war now going on. And so if we look back at the 1970s, some of the assets that worked well, some of the asset classes were, again, inflation-protected securities. I know you've been shouting from the rooftops about taking a look at the I bonds, and they're still paying a really great interest rate. So those were some investments that helped to keep up with inflation. Also, I'm going to say alternative investments like commodities. During the 1970s, commodity prices rose sharply because of, again, of that combination of factors, including the oil crisis and the demand for raw materials, which we've seen that during this recessionary period as well. And so commodity prices, alternative investments, value stocks. And value stocks are the stocks that are to be considered undervalued relative to their intrinsic value, or what's on the books basically for their assets. And so that just means that you're looking for companies that traditionally are really good at generating consistent returns, are pretty stable, have good balance sheets. They just might be out of favor right now for whatever reason. So that's your consumer staple category of stocks, the household everyday items. And then don't forget about international investments. So I think right now, China and some of the international sectors of the global economy are doing really pretty well. Particularly China, coming off of their COVID restrictions, it's really starting to become a situation where we have that dichotomy of performance again. It's for the last 10 years, I think the United States has just outperformed and overshadowed international investments, and we've kind of shied away from them as a whole. It may be a good time to take a look internationally as well. Similar, just going back to the 1970s, Japan, Germany, they were experiencing strong economic growth while the United States was kind of languishing.
Yeah, so if you've been listening and right now you're worried about how to protect my retirement savings, the number one takeaway is know what you own right now. There can be, again, different areas that you want to have and have your portfolio positioned correctly. Defensive stocks like those consumer staples, utilities, as Chaz pointed out, the inflation-protected securities. Looking at some of those rates that are out there, they're still significantly higher than a lot of the other alternatives that are out there. Maintain a good cash reserve. Make sure you have a bucket of money, especially if you're close to or in retirement time, to help fight off the next 2 to 5 years with having a plan B in place. The fixed rate products that are out there, because of the massive increase that we've seen here recently in interest rates, whether it's a money market account, a fixed CD, or a fixed annuity, a lot of those rates are very, very attractive today. And last, Chaz, as you point out, through diversification, looking at some foreign investing. So if you want to know more on like this topic or any other topic that we have, I encourage you, if you haven't come out to one of our workshops, we do have one that's coming up next week. That event's going to be over at Bowling Green State University. It's at the Levis Commons campus, so right here in Perrysburg, Ohio. We're going to be talking about the retirement playbook. So Chaz and I will be out there if you'd like to come and have an opportunity to ask us questions about your portfolio, other ideas about how to protect your savings. We are still taking some reservations, so if you'd like to come out, just sign up this weekend. We'd love to have you out.
It's real easy. You can go to the website, arhq.com, click on the events tab there to find the retirement playbook and all kinds of events that the team has put together so far going through the rest of the year. Whether you have vivid memories of stagflation from the 70s, or perhaps you were more concerned with other things back then, high school, college, whatever, that is completely fine. The reality is we are all older and closer to retirement and should be better prepared for it. And you may seem out of your depth when it comes to doing that, but that is okay. That is what the team at America's Retirement Headquarters can help you with, get you to, through, and beyond retirement, regardless of what may come down the line. It all starts with that phone call, 419-794 3030 or go to the website, like I said, arhq.com.